numbers for who the people of Tamil Nadu want to see as the country's next Prime Minister. Remember, over the last several weeks, Jayalalithaa has run a very high voltage campaign invoking Tamil pride, saying it's time that someone from Tamil Nadu became the Indian Prime Minister. This is the only state where Jayalalithaa or the incumbent Chief Minister's popularity ratings are higher than those of Modi. Of all the battleground polls that we put out so far, everywhere Narendra Modi tops the list. This is the only state where Jayalalithaa has a 4% gap between her and Narendra Modi. Rahul, Sonia and the others lagging. Let's now look at who people want to see as the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu. According to the CSIR opinion poll, Jayalalithaa leading by far. Karunanidhi coming in at 33, Stalin at 6. That's a little unfair because if you were to add the both of them, then you're about 39, giving Jayalalithaa a tougher fight. So clearly, she's lost some ground since the last election, but holding on quite strongly. What I want now is for Dhananjay to join me and for us to take our viewers through the figures for the various regions of Tamil Nadu and give a sense of who's doing well where. Dhananjay, if you can just join us, and we can start from North Tamil Nadu to give our viewers a sense of how the various alliances are doing in North Tamil Nadu. Dhananjay.
Well, Rahul, on the political stock exchange, Jayalalitha's party seems to be having a rally, and across all regions, she is leading.
Okay, let's come to Central.
Yeah, but in North and Central, we see that these are the two regions where the BJP is doing very well.
Not just the BJP alliance.
The BJP alliance
three-way
is doing very well, right. So these are two regions where it's way above its average, and the alliance is, it's a three-way contest as far as this region is concerned.
Let's come to the Kaveri Delta region, please.
Now, in this region, we see that it's a close contest between the AIDMK and the DMK. Although the AIDMK's lead is substantial, it's a 9 percentage points lead, which could result into a sweep.
Let's take a look at West Tamil Nadu next.
This is really Jayalalitha's bastion. She gets majority votes over here, 54%. So it's certainly going to be a sweep for Jayalalithaa and AIDMK in this region.
Let's take a look at South Tamil Nadu.
South Tamil Nadu, again, Jayalalithaa leads. However, again, it's a close contest because it's a 9-point gap between the DMK and the AIDMK. So it's something which mirrors the overall trend in the state.
Thanks, Dhananjay. I want to ask first Ashok Lahiri whether Aragiri being unhappy with the DMK and with his father throwing him out of the party, is that making any difference at all to how the DMK would have done otherwise?
In the survey, we didn't ask that specific question, so it's difficult to be definitive about it. But anecdotal evidence shows that Alagiri may not be making much difference to this. But Rahul, allow me to comment on another thing here. The question that you may ask is that why did Jayalalitha's AIADMK or DMK did not join either Congress or BJP?
Yes.
Now, AIDMK and DMK, you can see, the two together are taking the lion's share of the votes. They don't really need BJP or Congress. And Jayalalithaa is also leading Modi in the race for the PM. So in that sense, these numbers corroborate the fact that these two majors, Tamil majors, have not gone with either the Congress or the BJP. What it means for the Congress and BJP will come to later.
But the reality of past elections is they've done well whenever they've been able to stitch their own rainbow coalition. Whoever has had the best rainbow coalition has done well. That's also been the reality of Tamil Nadu politics in the past.
That's a very interesting question. See, Congress fought the election alone without any alliance in 1998. It contested 35 constituencies and lost its deposit in 34 of them, didn't win a single seat. In 2009, BJP fought alone in 16 seats, lost its deposits in most of them, didn't win a single seat. You can also say that in 2004, BJP fought with AIADMK and both of them didn't win any seats. What I'm saying is that an alliance may not lead to victory, but if BJP and Congress do not have allies, they will lose for sure. In such a situation, it makes eminent sense for BJP to take whatever alliance they can form. So I think BJP's strategy electorally was a clever strategy.
Sumant Raman, is Aragiri being unhappy with the DMK making any difference at all to how the DMK would perform overall?
See, his support base is limited to a few constituencies in southern Tamil Nadu, and the fact that he has not openly come out and said who people should vote for. He's been making these kind of statements saying that make sure that the DMK gets defeated, but he's not actually going out and saying vote for the AIADMK or vote for the NDA alliance in as many words, though he has hinted at some kind of vote going for in favor of the NDA alliance, but he's not actually said it. Now, you've got to look at it from the perspective of, in terms of the vote share, Western Tamil Nadu is a huge AIADMK bastion. If you take the 2011 assembly elections, and if you extrapolate it to in terms of the Lok Sabha constituencies, these were constituencies won by 17%, 21%. Tirupur, I think, was won by 20%. So even if you take away Vijayakant's vote, which was part of the AIADMK front at that point of time, it's extremely unlikely that the Western Tamil Nadu is going to change. The reason you're seeing the NDA do well in Northern Tamil Nadu, that's because of the PMK. The PMK doesn't have much of a support base in Southern Tamil Nadu. Both the DMDK and the PMK have a presence in parts of Northern Tamil Nadu. That's their core area. That's why you see the NDA alliance do a little well there. And as far as the combination of the Congress plus the DMK or the AIADMK, there have been only two exceptions in the history of Tamil Nadu where a combination of the Congress and the one of the major Dravidian parties has lost. Once was the assembly election in 1980 when MGR, a few months after the Congress-DMK alliance swept the parliamentary elections, MGR defeated the Congress-DMK alliance in the assembly. The second time was 2011 when the Congress and DMK together were beaten and well beaten by the AIADMK and the DMDK combined. So there have only been two exceptions. So while it's good to say that, perhaps that the DMK or the AIADMK don't need the Congress or the BJP, there's also the point of view that even in this election, a Congress-DMK alliance is something that could have put up a much tougher fight. And in my personal opinion, on May 16th, I am sure the DMK and the Congress are certainly going to be ruining the fact that they didn't go together.
Well, that's very interesting because also, Shiv Vishwanathan, I want you to comment on the fact that Tamil Nadu seems to be the only state we've put out so far where more people want Jayalalithaa to be Prime Minister than Narendra Modi. In every other state, regardless of how the BJP is doing over there, people would rather want Modi than the state's Chief Minister.
See, true. She's very clear about her intentions. And I think one has to grant it to her. She's one person whose ego is bigger than Modi's. Beyond that, I think to a certain extent there's a pride of the South kind of constituency. So sort of saying, okay, be Prime Minister, might mean that to a certain extent Southern interests for once get focused on this. But when I mean Southern interests, let's also be clear, it doesn't include the Vaikos of the world.
Subramaniam Swamy knows Jayalalithaa better than most. Dr. Swamy, I want to understand from you, what is it that Jayalalithaa is likely to do after the elections get over?
First of all, Jayalalithaa has got rid of all her encumbrances. She's removed all the communist parties and other parties would make it difficult for her to have alliance with some parties, for example, with BJP. So that's one. Second is, whatever you may say, ultimately Modi standing alone is not very far from Jayalalithaa. She's 29%, he's 25%, which is what I had told you. In my opinion, if the BJP had from day one, it was too late in the day at a later stage, but didn't say from September onwards, if they had decided to fight alone with Modi, we would have got the same vote that Modi has got as Prime Minister, which is 25%. Now what Jayalalithaa will do, she's a very flexible person. She will find out where she will get the best bargain. If she thinks that Modi is going to form the government anyway, I would be not surprised that she will say in the national interest and for the welfare of Tamil Nadu, she is going with the NDA.
No, but Sudhir, are we seeing here an attempt made by the BJP to try and pin Jayalalithaa down, to ensure that the BJP is not entirely dependent on her support, because if it is, then Jayalalithaa will demand a bigger pound of flesh, making life tougher for Modi. So therefore, try and do as well as you can to ensure that you're not overly dependent on Jayalalithaa. Is that the broader strategy that the BJP seems to be working towards?
Absolutely. In fact, the BJP and Narendra Modi would not want Jayalalithaa to be dictating terms, because she can be a different ally, as many both in the Congress and the BJP have realized in the past that she can be a different ally, perhaps not as amenable to reason as the DMK and Karunanidhi have been. So in that sense, they would want this alliance, this rainbow coalition that the BJP has stitched, to do fairly well and not be so dependent on Jayalalithaa. Also, while we are believing that Jayalalithaa will come rushing into the NDA fold soon after May 16th, it may not actually be so simple, because Jayalalithaa, for one, believes that she's senior in politics to Narendra Modi. So will she be playing second fiddle to a Narendra Modi? That's going to be one of the questions. And if she's going to join the NDA, and suppose we have the AIDMK becoming MPs becoming ministers in a Narendra Modi government, how would Jayalalithaa take, for instance, a railways minister of the AIDMK or a civil aviation minister having a larger than life kind of image than Jayalalithaa? Remember, in the AIDMK, no one else counts. Only Amma and Jayalalithaa count.
Okay.
So in that sense,
Sumant Raman, I want you to answer the query that Sudhir has raised. Would Jayalalithaa be prepared to play second fiddle to Modi, especially if the BJP does as well as opinion polls are projecting, sir?
I think it is very clearly a question of how many, what numbers the NDA gets in the election. If the NDA has other options, I believe the AIADMK will join the NDA, will support the NDA, and will turn out to be a very reliable ally, provided Mr. Modi and the BJP have other options which are available to them. They are within striking distance. They could cobble up other partners. In that case, I expect them to have an understanding with the AIADMK, and I expect the AIADMK to be a very reliable ally. If the numbers are short and they are going to be completely dependent on the AIADMK, then I think it's going to be a very tricky situation, because as historically has been proven, it may be very difficult to manage this kind of support over a longer term. So eventually it's going to boil down to numbers, and mind you, you also have to keep in mind the fact how many seats Jayalalithaa is going to get herself and the AIADMK is going to get herself on their own, because that is going to count. You must remember, if contrary to expectations, if the DMK does very well and the seats are split evenly in Tamil Nadu by some chance, then there's no reason why the DMK won't be willing to do business with the BJP. And you also have the third possibility of what happens to these allies of the NDA, the small parties in Tamil Nadu. If they win 2 or 3 seats, in fact, one of the first conditions that the AIADMK
in fact, let me just put those figures out. Let's just stay with us for a moment. We'll be able to talk about the real projections once we put them out. Can we have the vote share figures on our screen, please? Here is the overall vote share percentages that Cicero is projecting for the India Today group. The Congress by itself slipping from 15 to 8%. The BJP with its rainbow coalition at 16. That's 6 less than all these parties taken together got in the last election, which means that their votes are not entirely transferable. I think that's the point our guests were making as well. The AIADMK at 36, that's a big jump of 13%. Remember, in 2009, it's the DMK alliance that had done much better. So the AIADMK carrying forward, to some extent at least, the results from the assembly elections of 2011. Then the DMK alliance getting 29. That's still a gain of 2 over what they got the last time. That is what the vote share projections for 2014 look like. Let's now have the seat share projections, please. Very bad news this is the 2009 data, where the Congress had 8 seats, the BJP had 1, the AIADMK had 9, the DMK had 19. Can we have the 2014 projections up on our screen right now? The Congress crashing from 8 to 0. The BJP along with its allies likely to bag between 4 and 6. The AIADMK between 20 and 24. The DMK between 9 and 13. And I want to go across first to Mr. Sugandhan to explain his sense of the vote share and seat share projections. Mr. Sugandhan.
I couldn't hear you properly. Can you repeat, please?
The Congress likely to bag nothing, draw a blank. The BJP between 4 and 6. The AIADMK between 20 and 24. The DMK between 9 and 13. Those are the projections done by Cicero for the India Today group. I want your sense on the seat share figures that have been put out tonight, sir.
The ground reality still, I beg to differ with the opinion polls. I don't find where this 9 or 13 seats for DMK will come, because though Jayalalithaa is left alone without any alliance, DMK has got some alliance, but those alliance are will not make big impact on this alliance. That I have some reservation on that. Let us see the ground realities on May 16th. Regarding Congress, most of the Congress leaders of Tamil Nadu have given up. They have given up because one of the main accusations of some of the senior leaders of the Congress is the Congress High Command is not bothered about the local Congress sentiments. The local Congress people feel they were totally backstabbed by Karunanidhi. Though Karunanidhi would have said in his first campaign that the Congress has backstabbed me. But now what the local Congress people see is Karunanidhi till the last minute he was giving his invitation to DMDK. I am prepared to invite Vijaykanth. So they were Congress was kept at a distance. In the meanwhile, what Karunanidhi did was he gave an invitation to Ghulam Nabi Azad as if he is going to have a neat alliance with the Congress. The Congress High Command started believing. In the last minute, DMK ditched Congress. They were left alone. Why DMK did not take Congress in their fold this? There is a strong feeling. It was Mr. Stalin, the heir apparent of the DMK. He was very staunch in not taking the Congress this time because they don't want to take the burden of the Sri Lankan Tamil issues on their shoulders. They wanted to throw the whole burden on the Congress, and they want to come out clean, as if they have nothing to do with the Sri Lankan war in 2009. That sentiment also will play a very important role in this Tamil Nadu election.
Mr. Sumant Raman, what's your sense of the overall seat share and vote share figures that have been put out tonight, sir?
I think the vote share broadly is in line with my thinking in terms that the AIADMK is somewhere around 35% plus or minus 3-4%. That seems rational because historically the AIADMK vote has been around 30-32% plus or minus 3-4% when they stand on their own. The DMK vote share is about 5% less, and this time because there has been an erosion in the vote, that 5% is being compensated by the allies, the VCK, the MMK and so on, so they come up to 29%. So that is fine. What I'm not very comfortable with, as Mr. Sudangan said, is this projection in terms of number of seats. I believe that if we are looking at a 36% vote share for the AIADMK and a 29% vote share for the DMK, the AIADMK seat share should be slightly larger. I would go closer to the 30-seat mark for the AIADMK with, and also I'm very confused as to how this 4 to 6 seats for the BJP NDA alliance is going to come in Tamil Nadu, because it's going to be very interesting. If the NDA alliance is going to take 4 to 6 seats, it means that they're taking critical vote share away from the AIADMK. And if these numbers, then if your seat projections are going to hold true, which is very unlikely, it's probably going to see a larger share for the DMK as well. So you're going to have a situation where maybe the AIADMK
ends
two
questions. Let Ashok Lahiri answer those along with Dhananjay Joshi. Starting, Dr. Lahiri, with the figures for AIADMK, you're saying 20 to 24. The experts on the ground say that's likely to be closer to 30, which is what past opinion polls had indicated.
I think our friend has got a point, because what is happening is that the iron grip of the AIADMK and DMK on Tamil Nadu politics is getting stronger. Their total seats is going to go up to about 33. Never have they got so many seats. The question that they're raising is the distribution of seats between AIADMK and DMK. Fair enough. But this is what the opinion poll shows, and we have stuck to this. See, 9 to 13, I hope our friend is not suggesting that DMK is going to get less than 9. So maybe 9 to 13, closer to the lower number. The other interesting question that has been raised is BJP alliance. It's losing votes. In terms of vote share, it is losing. But it's picking up seats. It's picking up seats. That's because it depends on where the votes are concentrated. We tried to look at that. Dhananjay and I tried to look at it. It seems the synergy between PMK, MDMK and BJP and the distribution of votes in the constituencies, we may be wrong, seem to suggest that they may be picking up 4 to 6 seats.
In their stronghold areas.
In their stronghold areas. But again, the question comes whether the alliance partners will be able to transfer their votes to each other. If that is denied, then something else.
Dr. Swami, quick final comments. It essentially means the Modi wave is not as pronounced in Tamil Nadu as it has been elsewhere. Mike.
Well, it's, in terms of the percentage, it's quite clear. But the fact is that that is all the vote that the BJP could have got. But because of the fact that the non-transferability of the alliance votes, BJP has ended up with 16.
Okay, but why have an alliance which has non-transferable votes? But then it can be argued that it's better to have some alliance than to have no alliance at all.
Well, that is an argument which I think is always been perennial. Whether alliances are necessary, not necessary, we have had this argument many times. But I certainly think that Modi was a very special factor, and the BJP, if it had just gone with Modi for PM, you would have got many more seats.
You also need a strong organization on the ground to be able to translate that into votes.
There is plenty of
and seats, but that's a different debate altogether. I want to thank all our guests for joining us tonight. Very fascinating 2 hours of political discussions. Thank you all very much for joining us.